Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and really appreciate you guys swinging by the channel to check out today's video. And guys, today I've got some bass fishing information that I don't even know how to put a title on it because it's going to help you out so much. So some of these YouTube videos I do, it's like one of the things I found is like the best YouTube videos that I do in terms of tips and techniques that'll help you catch more fish. I can't get anybody to watch them because it's not flashy, it's not fancy. So I just was thinking about when I wanted to talk about this video and how this stuff's going to really help you out that I'm going to go over today. I was trying to figure out a title for it, and there's not a title good enough to express how much this is actually going to help you catch more fish if you just incorporate it and utilize it in your fishing. So we'll get into that in today's video. And also, guys, for all the regulars out there, you probably noticed the last couple of days I've been in hotel rooms and traveling. We had our annual Bridgeford Protein meeting up in Wisconsin I've been at. So just got back about 2 o'clock in the morning last night from that trip. So try to get everything squared away to get back on track here this week. Also, guys, thank you very much for everybody hanging there with me the last few days. Appreciate everybody that's taken time to subscribe to the channel. Guys, if there's one thing you can do, if you're just new to the channel or you're scrolling through the channel, I just like to invite everybody to please hit that subscribe button. Man, that's a good free way to help intuitive angling. If you get something out of the content and the content's helping you catch some bass, just hitting that subscribe button goes a long way, along with using all the links I put in my video descriptions. Thank you very much. Me and my family really appreciates it if you guys are going to the extra effort to use those links in my descriptions and help the channel out. It really means a lot to us all. Okay, guys, I sort of want to give this is not going to be like a detailed video. I want to go over the fundamentals. There are some fundamentals that you have got to learn and utilize in your bass fishing every single trip if you're going to consistently catch bass, and if you're going to have more good days than bad days. And I was thinking about this in my mind about what are the things that people need to do, and sort of like a system they need to develop. So I sort of want to go over that as today's video. I want to talk a little bit about locating bass and then catching bass once you do locate those fish. Okay, the first process is, in order to catch bass, you got to put yourself around the bass. And here's the system that I want to suggest to you guys every single fishing trip. Just try this system, guys. Just try it out and let me know if it works. So let's say you got a fishing trip coming up. You got one planned. I don't care if it's just fun fishing or a tournament or whatever. A few days before you go to the lake, do this. Just like look at the weather, look at the extended forecast, sort of get a feel for what it's going to be like when you go to the lake. That's going to give you a good idea on the possible techniques that are going to work. And then do a little bit of Google Earth search. So in other words, download the Google Earth app on your computer or your phone and take some time to go over that Google Earth map before you go to the lake, because one of the things this can do, if you've got 15 or 20 minutes to spend on it, and you sort of like scroll around the map on Google Earth, you're going to see water clarity changes that might help you out. You're going to see bank cover. You're going to see like rock transition areas. You're going to find out where boat docks are. You're going to find out where lily pad fields are, or submergent vegetation. It is almost like going to the lake without going to the lake. It's an incredible tool to help you prepare for the fishing. So that's one of the things that I always do. The next thing you have to do is you got to go into it with a plan a little bit. I mean, unless you're just down there and you don't really care if you want to catch fish or not, you're just down there relaxing or something, you have to have some type of a strategic plan to put you in the part of the lake that is going to be the best for you. And that's ultimately what you have to do, because in bass fishing, it's all about putting yourself around the fish and locating those fish as quick as possible, figuring out how to catch them. So based upon the time of year that you're going and the variables surrounding your trip, variables like the water temperature, water clarity, time of year, all that, it's going to give you a good indication on where you want to fish at. And one tip I'll give you, let me break the seasons up into 3 different seasons. If you're fishing early in the year, say between like January and March, I find that the lower end of the lake is better. Cleaner water is normally going to be better from January to March. As you get like into April, May, June, that type of stuff, usually the mid part of the lake is better. If you put the lake into 3 sections, like the lower end, the mid end, and the upper end, that time of year is going to be better. The summertime, normally the upper end of the lake is going to be better. And then as you get back into the fall time of the year, that begins to reverse. And early fall, the mid part of the lake, and late fall, the lower end of the lake. So that's sort of a system that I use to help narrow the lake down, because you can't do everything. You can't cover the whole lake in one day unless it's a tiny lake. If it's a lake that is anything like over 5,000 acres or so, you've got to pick an area of the lake to figure out where you want to fish. That is important because that lessens the intimidation factor. A lot of people get intimidated by a large lake, but if you section it off into certain sections of the lake, that's going to be a lot more manageable for you to fish on the particular day you're out there. Okay, so let's say you got to that point, you've done your research, you figured out what part of the lake you want to fish. If the next thing you have to do is you have to identify the strategy and the technique and the structure that you want to fish. Again, this is based upon time of the year. That's one of the things that I stress on my videos, is that you have to learn seasonal patterns and movements of bass, unless you're a spotlighter, and that doesn't take any skill at all. You just go out there and scan around in open water and you catch that population of fish. But for real bass fishing, you have to understand the nuances of seasonal patterns and movements. So once you do that, you got to figure out, where are the structures those fish are going to be. Like, for example, in the wintertime, bass tend to like vertical structures. They like drop-offs, they like bluffs, they like steep banks, they like steep points. As the water warms up, they start moving a little bit flatter. They start to get in the mode of being around and looking for spawning type areas. They may not be in those spawning type areas, but they're going to be close to them. So they're looking for a little bit more protected, flatter water in the springtime of the year. And then in the post-spawn time of the year, early summer, those fish are on their way back out to a little bit deeper water. You get them like on secondary points and main lake points. Summertime of the year, you have your thermocline formations. You got some fish suspended, some fish deep, some fish shallow. And then in the fall time of the year, you have a larger movement of fish in shallower water around any visible target. So based upon the time of the year, now I blew through that. I mean, each one of those little things I talked about, we could do 5 videos on. But the main thing I want to reiterate, as far as it's going to help you here, is try to figure out the part of the lake and the type of structure you want to fish first. That's the first thing. Now, once you do figure that out, let's say, for example, you've decided you've got a nice looking creek arm of the lake in the mid part of the lake. That's just where you decide to fish at that particular time. The next thing I want to give you guys some advice on is once you figure out the area that you want to fish, take a few minutes before you start fishing and run around that area with your boat. And that gives you a visual of how it lays out. You can see the potential targets you got to fish. You can see water clarity changes. You can see the available cover. You can notice the angles of the bank. You can graph around out on some points and see if there's some drop-offs out there. Before you get fishing, just get a mental picture and an actual real picture in your visual of how this area lays out, and then decide the technique you want to learn, that you want to use. And most of the time, what I do with my techniques is I've got one determining factor. I want to determine on that particular day if the bass are in a chasing mood or if they're not in a chasing mood. And that will isolate your lure category selection. If you figure out that those fish are in a chasing mood, or you suspect they are, crankbaits, spinnerbaits, topwaters, chatterbaits, swim baits, baits that move horizontally through the water column are going to be productive. And if the fish are not in a chasing mood, your bottom baits are going to be better. Your jigs, your drop shots, your shaky heads, Texas rig worms, that type of stuff. And the only way that you really determine that is by fishing, and a little bit by the weather patterns. Normally, if you have some type of a prefrontal condition that's characterized by like a south wind and a little bit of clouds in the air, and some higher humidity, maybe steadier dropping barometric pressure, those are good indications the bass are in a chasing mood, and those reaction baits are going to work good. But if you get out there on a day where it's a post-frontal situation, or there's getting a lot of heavy fishing pressure, or it's bright bluebird skies with not much wind, variables like that, that's probably a good sign those fish won't chase. They're going to be tucked down on the bottom, and you got to fish bottom baits. That's sort of a broad system. That's sort of how I go about it. And then once I do determine the lure category and the type of lure that those fish want, I've got to isolate those down even further with like color selections, the cadence and the retrieve of your bait, maybe the correct pound test line that I have. And all this is just, it's part of the process of experimentation. And the way that you do that, try something for 10 or 15 minutes. If it works, great, keep doing it. If it doesn't work, make a little tweak change a color, change the way you're reeling the lure in, change your line size, change the length or the profile of the lure. Sometimes, like on a square bill crankbait, they want a little small square bill. Sometimes they want the larger square bill. You just have to experiment and try different stuff until you hit upon the right combination of your bait, the area that you're in, your retrieve. It's the same thing every time in bass fishing, guys. This is the same process. So anyway, guys, that's how I go about it. It's been really successful for me. I'm not saying it works every time, but it usually works more than not. And usually I can wind up catching, having a decent day of fishing if I just utilize all that. So anyway, hope it helps you guys out. We'll check it later.